Hello there, my beautiful internet friends of Trauma Talk. Thanks for joining me here today on my channel. Before we dive into the fascinating subject that we're going to talk about today, I just want to wish everybody out there a happy, healthy, safe time. I know it's crazy out there right now. It's a scary time. There's a lot of anxiety. If you're feeling weird or off, I'm right there with you. I think most of the world is, and we'll find a way to get through this together. Every once in a while, I indulge in internet drama videos, and I was listening to a new commentary person the other day when she said something that resonated with me so deeply about talking about difficult subjects like mental health or trauma. This is something I've been trying to articulate and feeling some frustration about for years, but it finally really clicked when I heard her say this. Actually, real quick, before I play this clip, a little bit of context. She is talking about the response video that a channel called Disassociate did to a recent situation with Trisha Paytas being incredibly insensitive, to say the least, about dissociative identity disorder and really disrespecting it. And this channel, Disassociated, did an amazing job of responding and educating and being very tactful and poised. So with that background, let's play that clip.
But I do believe when talking about anything, especially something kind of controversial or something that is polarizing or misrepresented, I think it's important to be fair and careful and poised and tactful, because that allows us to view you as an objective party. And when you present information in an objective way, it is a lot easier for the audience to accept all of the information you're providing.
So first of all, I completely agree with what she's saying. It's very, very accurate. If you are talking about a difficult subject, whether that's something for you personally or an issue that you care about, if you can be fair and balanced and poised and tactful, it makes it so much easier to digest. I don't like it when people are super emotional at me or yelling at me or trying to get me to understand something with frustration. I am much more open to it if someone is willing to lay things out in a fairly objective, fairly organized manner, talk calmly, so on and so forth. I think most people are that way. We're way more responsive to that sort of demeanor than information that is injected with a lot of emotion talking about difficult subjects. However, this hits on something, like I said at the beginning of this video, that I felt a lot of frustration over for years. So obviously, because you're watching this on my channel right now, I run a channel called Trauma Talk. And ever since I experienced the trauma that I experienced, it's been a goal of mine to get to a place where I could talk about the stuff that I went through, the issues surrounding that, sort of the bigger picture, the societal problems, how people respond, and educate people. I wanted to educate people in a manner that they could be receptive to. And what I've personally observed in my life is that people are way more receptive to information when it's presented fairly and calmly. But to be honest with you, I've worked really, really hard to get there. It's taken years of difficult conversations, of processing what I was feeling, of pulling back when I needed to pull back, taking time to think, taking time to process intense emotions, to get to the place where I could have difficult conversations without injecting myself into it or my emotions, or knowing when I was triggered or knowing when I need to end this conversation because I'm not in a place to do a good job of presenting this. It's still a work in progress, obviously, but I've gotten to a much better place with it. I've gotten to a place where I'm proud of how I can talk about difficult subjects like trauma, sexual assault, domestic violence, abuse, really hard topics. I believe that we can change the way that society views these things through conversations, through relationships, through compassion, through trying to understand where people are coming from. But this also highlights one of the reasons why I believe people who have experienced crimes like sexual assault, like domestic violence, or really horrific things are so often not really believed, are not listened to, are kind of shrugged off, not taken seriously, because when you've gone through something like this, the most difficult thing in the world is to be fair and balanced and poised and tactful while talking about the worst moments of your life. Trauma changes your brain. We've talked about that before. Triggers are real with PTSD, where you are not suddenly thinking clearly or in a straight line, and it's damn near impossible not to get really emotional about things or completely shut down or forget details. It's hard to be organized when you're talking about this sort of stuff that's really near and, I don't want to say dear, but that's really, really close to you and has really harmed you in some way. The reason that I got really good, at least I feel like I'm decently adept at talking about difficult subjects in a digestible way, is because I saw what happened when people didn't do that. I saw what happened when people were raw and real and emotional, and I saw the jokes that were made about them. I saw how they were not taken seriously. I saw how holes were poked in their stories. I saw a lot of ugly things, and I didn't want that to happen to me. I just wanted to add a quick note here. I am not suggesting that the right way to have these kinds of conversations or to talk about your story in a public or a personal light is to do so without emotion. Not at all. I think it's very important, as I say in the rest of this video, that we feel things, that we experience them. But I'm just saying from my own personal experience, something I've struggled with is to what level people will find that acceptable. And it's a difficult crossroads sometimes to try to figure out how to balance that. So I found a way to make my story packaged and make sense. And when people were saying things that were at that time horrific to me, things like blaming people for the trauma that they had gone through, where I just wanted to scream and rip my hair out and flip tables, I got really good at sitting there quietly and digesting what they were saying, and then asking questions and trying to understand where they were coming from, and then maybe sharing a little bit about where I'm coming from and why I think this way, and being very calm is the word that keeps coming to my mind with this. I think that is a skill we can all do a better job at developing and focusing on, but when you don't have the bandwidth to develop it or focus on it, it's so difficult. It's true, it's totally true that when you present information, be it a story or a difficult topic, in a poised and tactful way, that people are way more open to receiving it, to viewing it objectively, to believing you, to seeing it as truth, to considering your viewpoint. But what happens when you can't be poised and tactful? What happens when you're talking about horrific things that you have experienced and someone is not taking you seriously because you're really emotional about it, because you can't necessarily think straight, because you can't be an organized, put together person in those moments? I think it's a really difficult crossroads, and I don't really have an answer here. That piece of that video really resonated with me because I was like, that's so accurate. It's so true. And on the one hand, it feels kind of heavy to me, and it feels kind of unfair that victims who have experienced things kind of have the obligation to find a way to be poised and tactful in telling their stories if they want to be taken seriously by most people. I want to put an asterisk on that and say most people who are outside their immediate circle, people who don't know you, really, really well. And unfortunately, sometimes people who do know you really, really well. It's a weird position to find yourself in when you know that if you want to be taken seriously, you have to find a way to bottle up or process through, which is healthier, awful things that you've experienced, trauma that has changed your life and changed the way your brain works. And sometimes it's not possible to do that in the moment. Sometimes it's not possible not to express emotion to some level about something. And unfortunately, sometimes that makes it more difficult for people to believe what you're saying. I kind of think that that's sad. I feel sad about that. But it also is reality, and it's one of the reasons that, like I said, I've worked really hard to try to find a way to do that from an authentic place, processing through everything I actually am feeling. So I kind of feel like the big question here is, what the heck are you supposed to do if you can't present information in a fair and balanced and objective way? And that information is personal and matters, and you want people to understand. I think one of the best ways is to share resources. I know that there have been times when people who were very close to me did not understand something at all, and I could not put it into words because I didn't have words for it yet. But oftentimes I've found resources, I found articles or websites or books that encapsulate it, that do a good job of saying what I'm trying to say, what I'm unable to say. And those resources come from a more objective place, and then people are more open to hearing it. If you're having a hard time being poised and tactful or fair and balanced, or anything along those lines, or even just calm in talking about your experiences and sharing those with people, and you have that fear that they won't take you seriously, you're not alone. I have felt that many, many times myself, and I'm still trying to find a good way to balance it. Let me be very clear, there is no reason not to show emotion. I'm not at all suggesting that you suppress what you're feeling. It's really important that we feel those things so that we can move through them. But with that being said, it's also very important that you find a safe place to do that, because trying to be articulate when you're dealing with trauma sometimes isn't possible. But there are others who have paved the way. There are other YouTube channels, there are other books, there are other articles, like I said, or blog posts, or even people that you can refer people in your life to if you do not have the energy or the capability to put into words in a fashion that makes sense something to someone else. I'm curious if you've ever felt this way too. If you feel like sharing, I read all comments and I'd love to see what you have to say in the comment section down below. If you like this video, if you feel like helping the YouTube algorithm with me, give it a thumbs up. If you don't feel like it, don't do it. Don't worry about it. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks to my patrons over on Patreon who help make videos like these on this channel and also on my other channel, Footless Show, possible. I really appreciate you guys. And thank you for spending a few minutes out of your day listening to me chat and spending your minutes with me. I appreciate that as well. I love you guys. I'm thinking about you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.